So you've tried to switch your dog to a raw diet and things did not go according to plan. So now you're thinking raw might not be for you and your dog. Well, let me tell you, I hear you, okay? And I bet that you, like me, have made one of the 5 most common mistakes that beginner raw feeders make. And actually, if you're like me, you've probably made them all, okay? So yes, transitioning Iberia to raw was not a walk in the park. We live and learn, so I'm here to make sure that you don't follow into my missteps, okay? So first of all, let me tell you who I am and how I know all of this, okay? I'm Micol. I'm a pet nutrition specialist, animal osteopath, and homeopath. I have been feeding raw since 2008, and I've gone even more in-depth in the study of animal nutrition while I was attending vet school. So yeah, I've learned and studied and experimented a lot with raw feeding, and I have helped scores of beginning raw feeders like you. And let me tell you, you're not the only one who's finding roadblocks when starting to feed raw. But the good news is I can help you navigate through them like a pro. All right, so the first and the most common one is not feeding enough bone. And it usually goes like this. So you've got your ratios, you've done the math, you've done shopping, you've put the recipe together, and you finally fed it to your dog. And holy diarrhea, okay? And you're left wondering, what the heck? I did everything right. I read all the resources, I listened to online advice, I did all of the things. Why is this happening to me? Well, I hate to break it to you, but this is actually quite common, okay? Before we go on, let me tell you, this happened to Iberia and me as well. I mean, I had done all the things, I read the resources, I studied, I pestered my vet school professors, and yet Iberia was getting horrible projectile diarrhea and I couldn't stop it. What was the problem? So it was actually kibble and bone. Let me explain how that works. So kibble is full of both plant fiber and carbohydrates, and both of these cannot be digested by our dog's digestive system, so they end up being pushed out faster because most of it is waste. The result is that your dog's intestine is contracting faster than it would if your dog was eating a meat-based diet. So you would think that your body would catch on, or our dog's bodies would catch on to what they're eating and adjust. And it does catch on, it's just not that quickly. So you need to give the body a little bit of time to assume that meat-based meals will be coming in the future. In the meantime, because it's trying to push food out quickly, it will do the same with your perfectly balanced recipe, resulting in soft poo or, even worse, diarrhea. So how do you fix it? So it's really easy. The first 2 weeks, you should be feeding your dog a much higher percentage of bone. I recommend starting with 1 meal a day of raw and the other kibble, and the raw meal should be between 20 and 40% bone. So to give you an idea, that means feeding a meal of duck necks or rabbit ribs. You shouldn't mix raw food containing bones and kibble in the same meal. Again, we don't want to confuse the intestine, but alternating meal works really well. This leads us to poop problem number 2. Too much organ meat too soon. And yes, I know that a balanced raw diet contains organs, but you need to remember that organ meat is very rich. And I usually compare it to like a multivitamins for humans, okay? So if the digestive system is not used to it, it will push it out. And when it comes out, it goes everywhere. So save yourself and your floors and your dog dignity. Hold off on feeding organ meat at the beginning. So I usually recommend waiting at least a month before introducing it in what I call the 3rd step when transitioning to raw food. Now, my steps are in another video I made, so if you're wondering how you can refine it and follow the steps, you can go ahead and check it out. I'll link it below for you, okay? And don't worry, 1 month without organ meat will not break your dog's diet at this point. You are transitioning her, so her diet in this first month is going to look a lot different than what her regular diet will look like. The 3rd mistake that I see people make all the time is time. Switching to a raw diet can be done overnight, and if you're very lucky, you may not have to spend the whole night with the windows open to defuse the horrible gas bombs your dog is dropping, and the next morning, not on your knees scraping poo from your carpet. And if you happen to be one of the lucky ones who can get away with this, you'd still be making your dog a huge disservice. You see, our dog's most powerful digestive system is actually the intestinal flora, meaning the bacteria that live in her gut. So contrary to popular belief, it is these bacteria that do the majority of the digesting work. And they release digested nutrients that are then easier for our dog's cells to absorb and then utilize. Now, obviously, each type of nutrient, there's a different set of specialized bacteria, so that when you switch diets quickly, the bacterial population doesn't really have time to adjust to the new food. The bacteria that are already present cannot digest it, Obviously, they're usually made to digest carbohydrates. And the ones who are there are in too small a number to extract enough nutrients. So the bottom line is that until the bacterial population has caught up, your dog is not getting all of the nutrition she could from her brand new raw diet. Now, the quality and source of the ingredient you feed is another common mistake. So let me tell you what I did. So when I first switched to Beria, I thought, okay, let's go with the light meat, chicken. Mistake. So I know that when we think in terms of health and whole foods, we base our decision on what is best for people because that's what we know. And this can sometimes apply to dogs as well, but not always the case and definitely not now. So the problem is that chicken, or we should actually say chicken parts called chicken meal in dog food speak, are present in the majority of commercial pet food. This means that your dog has basically eaten chicken twice a day her whole life. And what happens in this case is that her body has probably gotten sensitized to it, and it will then start reacting to that, meaning it will start producing runny and gooey poo. So let me explain this in simpler terms. So basically, because each source of meat has particular nutrients, if you feed the same food continuously, the body will be very rich in these nutrients, sometimes too much so. And having too much of something can be sometimes worse than too little. So this is why most dogs tend to be sensitive to chicken and sometimes to beef as well. This was certainly the case for Iberia. It's one of the reasons why, poor baby, it's one of the reasons why she had so much diarrhea when I first tried to switch her. And what caused her poo to be covered in like slimy goo once I properly switched her, but I was still feeding her chicken sometimes. Once I caught on and it completely removed chicken from her diet, her poo went back to normal, and she also gained a little bit of a pep in her step, if you know what I mean. So action step on this one is switch your dog to a more anti-allergic meat source, such as rabbit, lamb, and any kind of wild game. A few months after you've successfully made the switch to raw, you can then try to incorporate chicken and beef in the diet to see if your dog is okay with these food sources. And talking about ingredients, here's another problem I often see, and that's pet parents finding a recipe off the internet or one that was passed along by a friend and assuming that it will be ideal for their dog as well. And then reality hits them. And here's the thing, you know that you are unique and that the diet that your friend or a stranger on the internet may recommend may not be right for you, your body's needs, and your state of health. So why would this not also be true for your dog? And yes, so the tenets of a raw diet are a very basic 80-10-10 ratio. But let's look at it this way. Say the ideal meal for a person is having a plate that is half full of veggies and then a quarter with protein and a quarter of grains or starches. But if you and I were to have to come up with that kind of plate, we would come up with very different looking plate for ourselves, despite following the same guidelines, because we need and we like different foods. Our dogs are the same. The general ratios stand, but the choice of ingredients is more personal and should be tailored to your specific dog's needs. So how do you know what is right for your dog? Well, honestly, that's what the focus of this channel is all about. So stay tuned because I'll be making a lot of videos where I talk about how you can learn to read your dog and the signs that she gives you so that you can make the best decisions for her, not for some other dog living in some other place with a whole other set of needs. Oh, and if there's a specific question that you have in mind, then leave it in the comments below. That's all for now. Thank you for watching this. Give your dog a kiss for me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.